Well, it's a very good morning, it's a good afternoon, and it's a good evening to you wherever you are listening to our Coaching Cafe all around the world. Apparently, it's a beautiful spring evening in California, but it's freezing here in Melbourne and on the Mornington Peninsula as well. So we've just done our weather check and we've got people dialing in from all around the world. Welcome. My name's Natalie Ashdown. Welcome to the Coaching Cafe. Welcome to our dear a residential HR manager, Paula Jones Hunt. Thanks for joining us again, Paula.
Lovely to be here.
And today we are talking about coaching for tricky performance conversations. And yes, a very popular topic by the looks of how many people we have joining us here or on your favorite streaming service. Let's get into it. Before we do that, let's acknowledge that the traditional owners, the custodians on the lands on which we're all meeting today, and their continuing connection to the land, the waters, the communities of Australia, and the lands from all around the world where you might be joining us today, live or on your favorite streaming service. We pay our respects to them, to their elders past, present and emerging, and elders from Indigenous communities from all around the world. Well, we have a lot to talk about today. We are in performance conversation season for those people that are doing those mid-year performance conversations. And today we're talking about tricky conversations. So we've been talking about the different conversations over the last few weeks around performance conversation season. We've talked about strengths-based conversations. We've had a good conversation about all those. Today we're getting into the tricky stuff. So let's see how we go. We are seeing this season of performance conversations as an opportunity to build engagement, and we'll tell you why. But for those of you that are new, welcome. We are all about creating a community. We come here nearly every Friday. We had the week off last week, but we come here nearly every Friday at this time to build a community, to share our thoughts, our knowledge, our experience, grow ourselves as coaches, have thought-provoking conversations, and many of you are collecting your CCEs for free. They're available at the end of the session if you're listening to this live. So, why do we care about this topic? I'm glad you asked. Well, what we know from the research is that only 14% of employees agree that the performance reviews that they receive during this time inspire them to perform better. Only 14% of employees strongly agree that the reviews they receive inspire them to perform better. I'm just repeating that for effect. Only 26% of employees strongly agree that they're accurate, and only 29% of employees agree that they're fair. So we have got a big issue here. We're going into this big performance conversation season, and pretty well the majority of all employees think that they're not inspirational, they're not accurate, and they're not fair. So these are the statistics from last year from Gallup.com. Go to Clifton Strengths and go to Gallup.com and look at all the research that they have there. They have researched thousands of employees over hundreds of organizations. The data is very consistent year on year. So this is a worry. We have been talking for the last couple of weeks about the perfect storm. We know in Australia, this is the data from last year, but the data was backed up again for this year in the global Gallup State of the Nation global workforce reports. For our colleagues in America, for our colleagues in Canada, for our colleagues in New Zealand, Japan, you're all listening. Our Indian colleagues on the line. Gallup.com, the state of the global workforce, has got your country broken down into countries. So today I'll talk about Australia, but please go to that report. Go to the detailed report and you will actually get the statistics for your country. You can see where your country is performing better than the rest of the world, and you can see where the whole of your country is actually less than other areas in the world. But we're looking at Australia and New Zealand. Most employees, they say 67% of employees in Australia and New Zealand are quiet quitting. Now, what this means is employees are filling a seat, they're watching the clock, they're putting in the minimum effort required, they're psychologically disconnected from their employer. they're minimally productive, but they're also more likely to be stressed out, burnt out than engaged workers. They're feeling lost and disconnected from their workplace. So it is what we call the perfect storm, because you've got performance conversation season happening at the same time that we are trying to address engagement in the workplace. And so I'm reminded of this picture in the background here, where this is the summer season in Australia, where we have these stormy days, and we send the nippers, the surf lifesavers, the junior surf lifesavers, out into the water with their water safety. It feels at the moment like a lot of us are coaching, like the water safety people looking after our managers. And it is very stormy. The seas are rough. The stormy weather. Now, there's many organisations that we work with where their engagement scores are in the top 10%. A lot of organisations, in fact, most of organisations we work, they have the engagement scores in the top 10%, which is wonderful. What are they doing? They're coaching. They're focusing on strengths. They're doing leader as coach programs, all of these great programs that actually build engagement. And of course, that is our bandwagon, isn't it? Really, that's what we're trying to do. Paula, I see you smiling and nodding. Tell me what your reaction to this is at the moment, and then we'll talk about tricky conversations.
Yeah, I think there's lots of people who are, look, I think there's organisations doing great work, and I don't think any organisation is sitting there thinking, how do we create the perfect storm for people? I think lots of people are trying to do lots of things, but the facts are is that we've got 67%, 2/3 of our workforce who are not engaged and are actively, are quiet quitting, and their productivity is low. And I just look at all the lost opportunity that is available for the individual plus the organisation. That's just, Gonski. And I was actually thinking of I put my little HR hat on for a minute, even the term performance review, and I wonder if there's an opportunity to reframe how we think about a performance review. And I was thinking about, what if we were looking at performance reflections and future planning, as opposed to performance review, which sounds like you're going to be measured against a bunch of criteria, which in some respects you are, but if you're an employee going in, does the term reflection sound better than review? The future planning piece is often the little nugget at the end that's like, oh yeah, and what training are you going to do this year? What if we focused on those areas as opposed to the pure review part? How might that change people's perception of the performance review process?
I like it. A reframe is needed. We could definitely take a look at things like that. Yeah, thank you. So what makes the conversations tricky? What makes these performance, we're saying tricky, what makes the performance conversations difficult? Well, it's those things that we talked about in our last cafe, that often performance conversations are annual events. There's lack of preparation. There's lack of enthusiasm for that exact reason you've offered, Paula, that it's like a review as opposed to opportunity to reflect. We are going to be measured against our KPIs, and we are going to be measured against our performance measurements. The review piece is the tricky bit, potentially. And often those conversations are unplanned discussions. They're rushed or they get rescheduled. On top of that, in our experience, a lot of the difficulty in performance conversations comes because some people are what we call overraters. They overrate their performance. They think that they're highly performing when in fact they may not be meeting the performance expectations. And what's happened, the perfect storm, is because some managers aren't able to address that performance throughout the year and discuss the reality of what's happening. We get to the mid-year or the end of year performance review and things just get quite difficult. There's a gap in the expectations. We also experience people who don't really care about the performance conversation time. Perhaps they've checked out. Perhaps they are quiet quitting. We also have difficulties where there's surprises. So we don't want surprises. All of you that have shared your thoughts over the past few weeks have definitely said that the performance review is a summary as opposed to surprise, here's your review. And that means that managers are underprepared. And a number of people have had bad experiences in the past. So I might not be having a bad experience with you as my manager, but I'm having these bad experiences from the past. So there's a lot going on. And that's where we think it comes into this perfect storm, because some managers are doing this so well. They've got those regular conversations happening. The dynamic plan is there, the team members taking responsibility, breaking down those conversations into manageable chunks that encourage communication and trust. People are using practical coaching frameworks to have performance conversations, but we know that a lot of it is not going well. So what's our role as leaders, as managers? What's our role as coaches? It's to help people build that consistency in terms of the conversations, and help people move past these difficult conversations. We want to give you a model to do that. Many of you will have seen this model, but before we do, Paula, any reflections you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I often think that I think we forget what people don't know. And in the workplace, you're promoted to a manager, but we either in lots of organizations don't give them the skills in order in management and coaching and leadership. You're a really great technical person, so now you can manage people, or and so we don't. I think we forget how much of the skills and knowledge that we have, having been in the coaching environment, that they just don't have. And then I think about our new generations coming through who actually need more training to know what they're supposed to be doing in the workplace. And if we forget to give them that knowledge and skill and build it, then that's where I think your misalignment comes. So if you've got new generations coming through that don't know what a performance review is, don't know what good performance looks like, don't know what those expectations are, how are we expecting them to actually meet the expectations if they don't know what they are?
Yeah, very, very valid comments there. Thank you. So let's talk about what we can do about this, and feel free, everybody, to jump into the chat if you'd like to engage in the conversation. We can pick up your comments from the chat as well. We want to what to do. This is the cute bunny. For those of you that are listening, I've got my cute Instagram photo, which is pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It's a cute bunny photo for a Friday. So what to do? Do we just pull rabbits out of a hat, or do we take a more coaching, a more strategic, a more performance positive approach? And like you were saying, Paula, maybe there's a reframe. Let's do some performance positives. Let's focus on those kind of things as well. All right, what to do? We want to offer you the quality questions that we have shared with many organisations that we know are working. There are some organisations we've worked with where these questions have been built into their online performance coaching systems. So we do have to have these conversations. So let's give managers a set of questions and a set of tools that they can use. Many of you that have done our certificate for workplace and business coaching will recognize this model from our needs analysis. So we can use this for needs analysis. Great set of questions that stand in needs analysis. They also stand alone as a great set of questions. But in particular, we want to bring these questions back for performance conversations as well. Here's the start of it. Let's start out our performance conversation about talking about what we're proud of. Let's have a conversation about what's been going well, what the person has achieved, what they are particularly proud of, how they play to their strengths, and what they would like to celebrate. So any of these questions are wonderful questions to get the party started in terms of the conversation. We can give these questions to the people that we're coaching. We can give these questions to managers as preparation. So come to the conversation, come to this review, having thought about what's been going really well. what you've achieved, what you're proud of. Let's talk about the strengths and how you'd like to celebrate those strengths. So we start out with those proud conversations. It gets people having the conversation. Even we've noticed those people that are quite resistant, that have really checked out. Now they could say, "Well, you know what? There's nothing I'm proud of." But if we press a little bit further, well, let's talk about what you've achieved or what you think you've done really well. Oh, well, I suppose I've just done my job, and I've gotten paid. And so even the really most resistant people, if we press a little bit more and ask about what they're proud of, this can make a real difference. Paula, why don't you take us through the next one where we start to talk about the challenges?
Yeah, so this is where we start asking questions about where have you experienced challenges? What's been the impact of the challenges? How did you overcome those challenges? What might still be outstanding and what strengths can you call on? So again, it's also not just saying, well, where did you have problems? It's actually asking them to delve a bit deeper into it. So what were the impacts of those challenges? So that you're actually getting to what might be underneath it. And I do love the question about how did you overcome the challenges, because often it's not the fact that the challenge arose, because challenges means that it's an opportunity to learn and grow, but it's what did you do that makes a difference in that space.
Yes, I love that. And of course, we're offering a set of questions, but of course, you can add to those questions as we go along. And one of the questions that you've hinted on there, Paula, is about learning. So you mentioned about let's make this a performance reflection. So when you reflect on the year, where did you experience challenges? Or as you reflect on the year or the 6 months or whatever period we're talking about, what do you think you've learned? What have you learned about yourself? What have you learned about leadership? What have you learned about managing people? So we could make it proud challenges learning if we like. We can put some learning questions into the proud section. I'm not fussed as long as we're asking good quality questions. I don't mind. The next one is around improvement. And this is where, as Paula, you're talking about, we are now forward focused, which is exactly what you said. What can we focus on? What can you focus on for continuous improvement? What would you like to change or do differently? What would be the benefits of the changes? And I love other questions such as what would you like to learn in the next 6 months? Where would you like to focus in the next 6 months? So that if we looked back on the 6 months or on the year, there's things that we can be proud of. Now, I have seen even the most crusty, resistant people respond to these questions, particularly if they've got time to reflect upon it. And I think the most important thing here is particularly if we're authentic. So we are coaches, we're leaders, we're managers, we're people that want to grow, develop, inspire, enable people to high perform. So if we're authentic in that, not rah rah approach, but our authentic, genuine leadership, people will respond. Paula, why don't you bring us home with the last element, which is the plan?
Yeah, so this is that forward planning piece that says, what steps can you move? What steps can you take to move forward from here? What is your plan for the next 2, 3, 6 months? And this is one too where we can focus on, sorry, what is your KPI plans? Like, so what are the things you have to achieve, but also how do you want to achieve them? What do you want to learn? Where, in what area would you like to learn and grow and develop in the next 3 to 6 months? What resources might you need to help you with this? How can you leverage your strengths over the next whatever period it is? And what support can I provide for you over that particular point in time? I think the key thing with this as well is that lots of people pre-fill in their forms and then go into the meeting and then discuss the form, what the information is that goes into the form. And what we're suggesting is the form needs to be filled in. It might need to be done before the meeting, depending on the process that you use. But these questions actually are a bird's eye view, an overview of what, and an opportunity to discuss and talk them through so that what you're putting into the form actually makes more sense or fits better for it. So I'm not suggesting you don't have to do the form. I'm saying that the conversation that you have doesn't have to be read the form. The conversation is an opportunity to open the conversation around these particular areas. And yes, it's about reflection of the past, but it is that forward planning is actually where the engagement will come moving forward. If you forget the forward planning piece, all you've done is reflected, and then that person's walking away not necessarily engaged for what's coming next.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paula, just this week, I had an executive, a senior person, send me their form. So their form had been filled out, and it was basically meets expectations, meets expectations, meets expectations, meets expectations, meets expectations, and there was a couple of exceeds expectations. Their manager had rated them. They had rated them. There you go. Uh, what I found was really lacking is everything that you've just talked about. So what are they proud of? Where did they experience challenges? What have they learned? What are they focused on moving forward? And it felt a little bit like a school report where at the bottom you say such and such is doing really well and should continue to focus on X, Y, Z and lead the blah, blah, blah. And I thought that's it. They've completed the form. They've completed the rating, and then the conversation is if the person has overrated themselves, there's exceeds expectations, and my manager has only said met expectations. Now we have to have a conversation about that. I suspect that conversation may or may not happen because they're busy people. So we've ticked the form, we've done our job, we're moving on. Off we go. So this is real, this is live, what we're talking about. We're giving tools and skills and opportunities to do it better, to do engagement better, to do performance conversations better. The thing that comes up for me still, though, is let's play devil's advocate on this. Or what if I don't agree with the person? So they have actually overrated themselves. They think they're particularly proud of this and particularly proud of that, but they're overrating themselves. And to that, I think we have the opportunity to say, I agree that you've done this, you've achieved this, you've played to your strengths here, and you can be proud of this. So we're not saying there's nothing to be proud of. We're saying what we agree with. Then we can move into the feedback I have to share with you is that there's been challenges here, here, and here. And what I would like for the focus of continuous improvement, what I'd like for you to focus on in terms of continuous improvement in the next period is X, Y, Z. So we're not shirking the situation. We're not pretending that the situation of the underperformance or the overrating, we're not saying it didn't happen. What we're saying is this is what I experienced. Let's talk about the differences, and we'll talk about that more at our next Coaching Cafe next week as well. So what do we actually do if there's like actual underperformance? Alex has jumped in and said, is it possible to discuss got some great comments coming in. Thank you. Is it possible to discuss the dichotomy where you ask them if they are not invested in the work? Is there a more suitable organisation that would help them with a sense of belonging where they could be motivated to perform? Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Alex, because it's an uncomfortable conversation to say, well, if you don't like it here, find somewhere else. But what we are talking about here is what is most energizing you. So go back to our Coaching Cafe from last week. What's most energizing you? How can you bring those strengths to the workplace? And if your work is not energizing you, what other options do we have? So treating that person with grace and dignity and thinking about what other options do they have rather than just sitting here minding the seat. It's a very tricky conversation. It's a tough conversation, but it's so valuable. It's such a valuable conversation if our managers have the courage to have those conversations. So, yes, I like what you say there. I think they're difficult conversations, but important to have. Sebastian, your comment is getting a lot of ticks as well. You said performance conversations either formal reviews or informal coaching, have traditionally been set up in ways that employees perceive the conversations, are being done to them. Totally agree. If we can shift the mindset to conversations being done with the employees, the engagement can lift, the outcomes can shift to the positive. We give the employee ownership of their conversation, it's their review, but that requires a positive relationship and workplace culture. And thank you, Sebastian. I think you've summed it up for us. We want a conversation that is a mutually beneficial conversation where we're partnering with the person, we're having a positive conversation, where we've reflected ourselves as leaders and coaches if we're delivering the if we're engaging in the conversation, and the person that we're coaching is also engaging, so they're having a think about these questions. We're having a conversation rather than doing it to them. So I think you've summed it up beautifully. Thank you.
Yeah, Natalie, I often say to managers, you're doing too much work in this space anyway. Um,
Yeah.
by asking more questions, you automatically click into engagement because you're asking the person to provide their perspective and their feelings about something. And so, in actual fact, a performance review should be a manager or leader asking really great questions so that the person whose performance review it is, which I agree with Sebastian on this, is that it's their review and their opportunity to really talk about and discuss what they've done and how they've done it, and what's coming up for them. So if the manager spends more focused time on asking great questions, then it's going to lift that performance review anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way that performance conversations and reviews are done is like old school when we were at school. You brought home the school report and you either liked it or you didn't like it. And I think that's what makes the conversations tricky. And it is all that under preparation. And I know that everyone on the line is listening and will think, well, it's obvious, isn't it? But as leaders and coaches, we need to bring this through our workplaces, because when we've got 67% disengagement and most people think that their performance reviews are not done well, they're not fair, they're not accurate, and they're not inspiring, then I don't think we can actually assume that what we know as leaders and coaches is actually out there in our workplaces. So lots of opportunity for us to make a difference, I think, is the message there as well. Well, the good news is this comes from Gallup's recent report as well, that we can ensure that all managers receive training to cut disengagement in half. So training in performance conversations, less than half of the world's managers say that they've received enough management training, exactly what you've suggested, Paula. And of course, we can teach effective coaching techniques to boost performance by 20 to 28%. And yes, and that comment that you mentioned there, Paula, that the manager or the coach is doing all the hard work. We need to shift that balance so it's a partnership when we have these conversations. Sebastian's saying if we're doing it from a coach's perspective, there's a danger if the coach is working harder than the coachee. Exactly. Keep in mind that not all performance conversations are a coaching opportunity. Indeed, they might just be a put it on the table and let's discuss it. So, yes. Angela, will you have a future Coaching Cafe exploring what some of the cultural economic issues causing disengagement globally? I like your thinking there. Stand by. Let's see if we can do that. There's lots of opportunity to have that conversation together. And we have a global community, as you know, on the line that can do that. Well, there you go, everybody. Let's focus on doing it better. When employers provide managers training in this area, it improves managers' thriving levels from 28% up to 34%. So there's lots of opportunity to do this better, and we as leaders and coaches can influence that. That's our call to action. All righty, everyone. Well, we are right on time. These tools are included in our certificate for workplace and business coaching. They are expanded in our diploma of leadership coaching. So, if those things are of interest to you, please join us. It would be wonderful to have you involved. For now, we say thank you for joining us and enjoy your coaching. We look forward to catching up with you at our next coaching.